Hey there, and welcome. So, have you ever kind of stopped and wondered why some nouns in English can be plural, but others can't? It's one of those things that can be super confusing, but we are going to clear it all up today. I promise by the end of this, you'll have a really simple way to think about countable and uncountable nouns, and you'll be using them naturally with a lot more confidence. Yeah, this one right here. If you've ever felt just a little bit awkward saying something like informations, you are so not alone. It's a huge challenge for learners, mostly because what you can count in your language might not be the same in English. But don't you worry, we are going to solve this mystery right now. All right, let's dive right into the basic difference. The very first step is just to get this core idea down. It's all about learning to think about things, objects and ideas, the way English frames them. At its heart, it really is this simple. Countable nouns are just individual things you can point to and count. 1 apple, 2 apples, 3 apples. Easy. They have a singular form and a plural form. But uncountable nouns, well, those are things you see as a whole, like a big mass or a concept. Think about water or rice. You just can't say 2 waters, right? Instead, you'd say some water, or maybe something like 2 bottles of water. And here is a super simple little test you can use anytime you're not sure. Just look at the thing and ask yourself, can I count these one by one? 1 book, 2 books? Yeah, for sure. 1 sand, 2 sands? Nope, that doesn't work. This little question is going to be your best guide. What's really helpful is that uncountable nouns often fall into these neat little groups. You've got abstract ideas like love or happiness. You can't really count those. Then there are materials like water or sand. We see them as a whole mass. And finally, general categories like furniture or money. Furniture refers to the whole group of chairs and tables, not each individual piece. Okay, so now that we know the different types of nouns, let's figure out the right words to use to describe how much or how many we have. These really useful words are what we call quantifiers. So the basic rules here are pretty straightforward. We use many with things we can count, like many friends, and we use much with things we can't, like I don't have much time. For smaller amounts, it's a few for countable things, like a few books, and a little for uncountable ones, like a little sugar. Now here is an amazing tip. Seriously, if you are ever in doubt, a lot of is your new best friend. It's this fantastic all-purpose phrase. A lot of friends, a lot of time, a lot of money. See, it works for everything, and honestly, it's what you'll hear people use most of the time in just casual, everyday conversation. Okay, pay close attention here because this is a subtle one, but it's so powerful. That tiny little word, completely changes the feeling of the sentence. If you say, I have a little time, that's positive. It means you have some, maybe enough to help. But if you say, I have little time, that's negative. It means you have almost none and you're feeling stressed. The exact same thing applies to a few versus few. All right, now it's time to tackle the words that trick pretty much everyone. These are the nouns that, well, they look or feel like they should be plural, but in English, they are always singular. And here we go. This is probably one of the most common mistakes out there. It makes sense, right? You can give someone multiple suggestions, so it feels natural to say advices, but in English, advice is treated like a single, uncountable concept. So the correct way sounds like this. You can say your teacher gave you some advice. Or if you really want to count it, you have to use a special phrase, like a piece of advice. And this pattern is the key for a lot of these tricky nouns. And here's another classic. You might have assignments for math and history and science, but we treat the word homework as a single big concept. So saying homeworks is just never correct. And look at this simple fix. Remember our best friend from before? A lot of homework? It sounds perfectly natural and it's always correct. You could also just say you have some homework. See how easy that is? You might want to pause and just take a look at this list, maybe even take a quick picture of it. Because these are the top troublemakers. Information, advice, furniture, luggage, and look at news. It ends with an S, but it's singular. We always say the news is interesting, never the news are. Tricky, right?
Okay, so let's move beyond just the grammar rules and start talking about real fluency. Here's the secret key, really. It's not just about knowing single words. It's about knowing which words like to hang out together. This is called collocation.
Make and do confuse so many people, but the general idea is actually pretty simple. You make something when you're creating it, bringing it into existence, like you make a decision or make a plan.
You do something when you're just performing a task that already exists, like you do homework or you do research.
And here are some of those essential combinations you just have to know. We don't do advice, right? We give advice. We don't do fun. We have fun. Learning these phrases as a single unit is one of the fastest ways to start sounding way more natural. And this is exactly why it's so important to kind of shift your focus. When you learn do homework as one single chunk, you never have to stop and think, wait, is homework countable? Your brain just knows the whole phrase, and the grammar just comes along for the ride. It becomes totally automatic. So what's the big takeaway here? How do you actually turn all of this information into a real, lasting habit that's going to improve your English every single day? Here's your plan. It's simple, but it's so powerful. First, just start noticing. When you're watching a movie or listening to a song, pay attention to these patterns. Second, when you learn a new word, learn the words it travels with. Learn the whole phrase. And third, you have to practice. Use them. Talk to people. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And finally, please remember this. The goal is not to be perfect. The real goal is just confident communication. Every single time you practice, you're training your brain and you're making those natural patterns stronger. So be patient with yourself. You're doing great. So I'll leave you with this question to help you kickstart this new habit. As you go about the rest of your day, just listening to English around you, what combinations are you going to hear? What phrases will suddenly jump out at you? Start noticing them today, and I promise you will be amazed at how quickly your English starts to feel more and more effortless.